All right. There's actually still one lesson that I missed. I might get back to, I might not at all. So I'm going to just jump on to this lesson. This is the lesson I gave this week, and I talk about different things. I opened up with this question, again, depending on the level of my students. I asked them if Confucius and Albert Einstein sat down for tea, what topics do you think they would discuss? Now, this is just to get them thinking. I like to sometimes just start off with a hard question. Really, you have to know about both of these uh, people who they generally do. A lot of my students are physics. They like physics. I mean, China is big on physics, chemistry, English, and Chinese. Basically, those are like the main courses. They go really hard on those, and they're high stakes testing where they need to get into middle school and high school and university. It's kind of like a meritocracy. I actually like it. I don't like the stress on high stakes testing because I believe there are other ways to demonstrate your skill, but at the same time they have a lot of people, a lot of students, and they need to kind of funnel them in to the programs where they're best fit. And there are opportunities for sports and technology. Some people are able to go different routes. I think they actually do a pretty good job in their education system. Again, there are. I think it's too heavy. I think the students are worked too hard though, uh, but but they're able to like I said, funnel them out anyway. So this question is meant to um, really provoke thought. I guess there's many answers. I had a list of them, and I use ChatGPT to help me out here. So I ask questions. I have like conversation with them. So these are like, it's not they're not able to produce this whole lesson, but I'm constantly asking. I thought that was a good question. I got that. Was trying to get like interview questions based on some of my students who might want to study abroad at international schools, some questions, off the wall questions they might get. It's important to be able to answer questions that you have never heard before, and I don't think anyone has heard that question before. I usually focused on education because Confucius was. I'm not big on Confucius. I don't really like Confucius. I like Lao Tzu, who was more of metaphysician, while Confucius is more like political philosophy, more like about social, the way society should be constructed and stuff. That was never really my interest in philosophy, but still, great question. Talking about, from what I understand, some of it might not be true, but at least as the story goes, Einstein didn't even graduate from high school or middle school or something, and basically, so he was kind of self-taught, and then just came out and then was recognized by universities eventually so he could become a lecturer. But I think Confucius is more of like structured, in a hierarchy of listening to your teacher. So they had different things they might discuss. I had a lot of students actually brought up a lot of interesting things. Some just said Confucius would talk about the tea and relate it to something, and then I was like, okay, well, there's their theory of relativity. They probably would have some common grounds. Um, anyway, that's more of a warm up. I talk about this. I posted some of this. It's all about the peanut sauce. I like talking about food. I talked about peanut. I talked about peanut butter. Do you know what peanut butter is? It's not common in China. It's not common here in Thailand either, really. Although, I've been to major superstores that don't have it, and so I talked about how to make it, and I'd pop up different things. Now, of course, they know I don't eat meat, but I'd say chicken satay is a popular dish. This I don't think is traditionally Thai. I think it's Malaysian or Indonesian, but it is popular in Thailand. And a peanut sauce is going to be similar that they make there. I talk about how to make it. I give them the ingredients. I pop it up here. But I talk about peanut butter because some of them actually have never eaten peanut butter. So I'd write peanut butter. I'd show them some images of peanut butter, what peanut butter is. Some of them know this. I talk about sandwiches, spread it on bread with jelly. I told them how that was like my go-to meal. I took it to school every day in a packed lunch. And And then I go back to this. I talk about my steamed vegetables and how they taste really good dipped in this sauce. It's a sauce. It's not peanut butter, although peanut butter is one of the ingredients. I would, I type it as I go. I would say, there's coconut milk, and then there's either cumin or curry powder, or maybe like turmeric or something, one of those things. And then we could add different things. There's coconut sugar, and so maybe some chili or something, whatever they want. So I always am using this Google Translate as I type in words. I wouldn't expect them to know the English word. They might know some spices and things like that. Then I talk about something I did, which was go to this place, Pa Cho, which is quite near our home. I talk about sedimentary rocks and plate tectonics, which the way that these formed. There is a lot of like sandstone here. There's a fine if you walk off the path, because they don't want you climbing on this rock. It could crumble. It's been formed over hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions. I don't know. I was reading some of the signs, but I'll show you a video from this as well. And I show my students the video, of course. But actually, how am I able to? Am I able to change my screen? Yes, I am. No, that's a shame. I'm using this different clips in my Zoom application. I'm not able to change my screen share. Anyway, I had a video, cute video. My son's walking all over the natural terrain in his bare feet. He loves to walk bare feet in everywhere, actually, even in stores and outside. But I try to have more shoes, maybe in stores and in like city streets. But in the nature, I think it's wonderful. I showed him the video. I asked them. Most of my students live in major cities, so they don't walk around barefoot. But then I always like making some sort of connection to culture. Now in Chinese, I typed in Chinese reflexology, so they're familiar with it. But it's funny how actually it's not practiced. Like Chinese medicine is not so common in China. It might be, there was a time when it was banned. I don't know the whole history of it. Different things, there were aspects of it, but they've actually really bought into a Western approach to medicine. Unfortunately, I really like Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine has an influence in Thailand, and Thai has their own, the way they massage, but I think a lot of it did originate from China, over thousands of years of just ancient human wisdom. I showed some of these charts. Some of the charts I showed them had, some Chinese writing, so they could understand at least some. Some of them weren't actually familiar with this at all. Some of them just know about it. Don't actually have any understanding. One of them said one of her father actually massages her feet every night, so he's familiar with it to some extent. And talking about how these are connected. My mom always told me that growing up, it's good to walk barefoot. I believe it. She actually said it was the healthiest. She said, it's the healthiest thing you can do. And then I challenged her. I was like, really? The healthiest thing you can do? And then she said, yes. So bold statement. Walking on rocks, it just kind of massages your feet. I'm huge on this. I mean, these are the types of things that I'm like, I don't believe you can even test for, is it healthy to walk, or how healthy is it to walk on your bare feet? I mean, I think it's so important to be connected to nature, especially, not as much in the city streets, but when you're in nature, let your feet touch the grass, let your feet touch the sand and the rocks. It massages your feet. Also, your feet move. I hate having my feet like flat all the time, like in shoes. So I'm always barefoot as much as possible, walking on the land, and you feel it, and your feet kind of mold to the ground. That you're stretching them, you're using your toes. Anyway, I did talk about that, depending on how much that was of interest to my students. And then there's an avocado fair. I like focusing on this word, fair. There's 3 meanings of this word. Fair as in a gathering, which in this case could be synonymous with festival, like an avocado festival, but then we also have like a science fair where you present your projects. So this slide is able to, I just base my responses on my students, where if they've done a science fair, then I start talking about their science project. If they haven't done it, I talk about, have they ever been to this type of festival or fair where there's a local fruit or vegetable? I've been to the garlic festival in Gilroy. Here we've got strawberry festival during strawberry season, and avocado fair, and all these different things. If there are local fruits, there are opportunities to go straight to the farmers setting up. It's amazingly cheap. I had a kilogram of avocados for 10 baht, which is like 30 cents, just this huge bag of it. Avocados are expensive in China, and some of my students know. I'd pop up, I'd look up avocado and show them pictures, talk about guacamole, Mexican food, have a lot of conversation. Food is always a fun topic to talk about and to see it. So I'd type up avocado. I always spell avocado wrong. Is it OAVO or A? I always spell it wrong. And then we talk about milkshake. This is common in Asia to have a milkshake. I talk about the flavor of an avocado it's not that strong. Has a lot of oil, healthy fats. You can make it a dessert. You could easily put it in a milkshake, but I like it in a sandwich. I showed pictures of sandwiches. I showed the guacamole, guacamole and salsa. Some of them are familiar with chips, different chips and chips and dips. I'm able to talk about all of these. I break this in, talk about the secret ingredient is cilantro. They're familiar with cilantro. They'll talk about what they put cilantro in. It actually gets pretty fun talking about food. But today's lesson is a continuation on logic. But hold on, I didn't tell you about fair. So there's fair like festival. There's fair like it's not fair, talking about just and equality, or this person got more than me, that's not fair, or this is fair, we're going to break it up like this. And then also fair skin, which is like a more like a pale skin, a whiter skin, which in China is more beautiful. And then in the West, generally, tan skin is better. We would say somebody, you have a nice tan. If you said fair skin, that could be taken as an insult anyway. So there's lots of talk. And then, of course, there's the word fare, F-A-R-E, like, a bus fare or something like that. So always going on tangents when I'm talking, and it's really based on my students' interest where they go. So I would get into all kinds of fun discussions, but then I focus on logic. Last week I talked about the introduction to philosophy. My students know I was a philosophy major as an undergrad, and I like to talk about different areas. I decided to focus on logic first. I think this is good for English. A lot of them write essays. They need to write discursive essays. They need to understand how to present an argument in English, which culturally it's different than it is in Chinese. So they need to think in like this logical structure sometimes, or it would be beneficial to. It's not. There are different ways to present an argument. So this is kind of going to lead up to that. Right now, this is really just fun stuff. I talk about logic. Logic is the study of reasoning, or the way we think and understand ideas. The philosophy of logic, just like we study the nature of water, liquid, solid, and gas, in philosophy of logic, we study the nature of thinking. Then I have them based on these. Can they match the definition to the vocabulary word? And these are all related. Most of the students were able to do this. They're actually really good at this. And again, logic is, I told them to focus on the study of, the process of, and then kind of just the grasping of, which they didn't always know the word grasp. I said to hold or to get. When I broke it down like that, considering that I talked about logic, if they remember that, logic is the study of the actual discipline, and reasoning is grasping the meaning, understanding is grasping the meaning, and reasoning is the process, right? The process of thinking about something in a logical manner is the process of reasoning. And then I asked them to use the word. Okay, give me a sentence with logic. I had it logic, and then I changed it to logical. Have them do both, just to make sure they can understand it. Then I asked them the question of what are the different forms of water mentioned. We talk about solid, liquid, and gas. And then I asked, do you know the names of that? It's funny, some of them forget the word ice just because in that context it trips them up. They know ice, but solid water is ice. There's liquid water is water, and then in a gas form it could be vapor. And then I also, just more words, what about when there's hot water coming off boiling water? That is a gas, it's steam. But generally when we think of a gaseous water, I would say vapor would be more correct. And I said, can you relate this to different ways of thinking? Again, this is like abstract, but I'm always getting them to think. There are a lot of references to water in Chinese philosophy, and I break it up. If they didn't really understand this question or what I meant, okay, I'll give you some subjects. Let's think of like math, philosophy, or psychology, and art. And you don't have to, but generally with that, they were able to identify, okay, a solid way of thinking would probably be math. And then I asked them to explain why. There's more structure, there's more, you're confined by more rules. And then there were differences on this, and I let them explain. I would think of like psychology as water, liquid, because like we have form, and psychology, there are rules to an extent, but it flows based on maybe the personal. There's definitely a lot more free form, but there's still some sort of containment. And then I think of art as more gaseous. It's much more free. Anybody could argue with those. Those aren't absolute, of course. There are a lot of people who would say art has all kinds of rules and whatnot and all this. But anyway, it's really just about expressing themselves. Can they pick one and argue for it? That's all I want to see. If they gave a different answer, I didn't say they're wrong. I liked it. And then I asked them to match the words philosophy, nature, and thinking to these. Looking at them, go ahead and make your guess, or if you know the answer. The inherent or fundamental quality of a character or something is its nature. The process of using one's mind to consider or reason about something is thinking. Thinking is a more of the process. Well, the study of fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, and ethics, directly from some of the information that I had last week. That is philosophy. At least that's part of what philosophy is. Now, I get into these statements. Now, there is some differences in these, but basically a statement is a sentence that can be either true or false. Now, it was important to get over this hump because at first I'd ask, like, the sun is purple. Is that a statement? Some students would say no. And then I say it is a statement. It is. It can be true or false. It doesn't have to be true. It's just it has a truth value. And then a logical test can be verified. Now, that's actually difficult. I said, in some ways, I said, this isn't, I will win the race tomorrow. It can be verified in time, but at this very moment, that can't be verified. So that's an argue whether that's a logical statement or not. Water is dry, again, doesn't sound true to me. It doesn't matter. It's a statement. And it's even a logical statement because we could test it. Now, linguistically, we could argue. I mean, all these actually get very, there's always different ways to argue. And I do encourage, if they think water is dry is not a statement or is, I try to get them to explain, but then I tell them why I would say it is or isn't. But I don't completely say it's absolute. Some of these I could be wrong about them. Somebody could say, well, actually this, and they might have a point. But it is important to recognize, like, questions. Do you know how tall I am? Or I should have actually made a command as well and said, like, get out of here or something. Get out of here or something, which is not a statement. Statements can't be questions or commands. So that's important that a statement is not the same as a sentence. Statement has a truth value. And then I ask them to create their own logical statements, their own statements. Then I have them match statement to true and false. Again, they understand these, but it's important to just think deeply about it. Statement is a sentence that provides information that is true or false. Something that is not correct or is based on wrong information is false, and true is in the accordance with fact or reality. And then I have some more questions. Again, some of these I skipped. I based this on my students' level. That's why I have kind of a lot of repetition here. I kind of bounce it around. I use all these slides. Some of them I'm going to skip with you because I didn't get to them. I kept it in a certain direction, so I'm going to bring those over to the next one. So if you see me skip the slides, don't worry. It's because I'm going to reintroduce them because I had too much to cover this week. I always try to do that. I try to have more than enough because there's nothing worse than just running out of things to say, which actually it never happens, but I make sure it doesn't happen. So it has happened, let's say that, in the distant past. Again, apples are vegetables. Statement? Again, yes, I have to get them to get over that idea of just because it's not true, it's uncomfortable to read, it's still a statement. Are you going to the store? Is not. Elephants can fly is a statement. And then I ask, is it true? That's arguable too, because we say we fly when we're in an airplane. You can put an elephant in maybe not a regular airplane, but I'm sure they've got those jets that can carry tanks and stuff. I mean, so in that sense, elephants could fly. Regardless, it is a statement. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius under standard conditions. Yeah, I'd say that's true. Some people could probably, what does standard mean? All this stuff, but it doesn't matter. It's still a statement. That's the point. And then we get into logical connectives. And I always tell them at first, this looks like just second grade English or something. We're talking about and or, but it will get deep. It will get confusing. We need to understand what we mean when we say and that it is inclusive in the sense that if I say it is sunny and it is hot, or it is sunny and hot, both parts need to be true. It has to be sunny and hot. Or gets a lot more confusing colloquially and in logic, because if I say it is sunny or it is raining, only one of those have to be true. And they both could be true. It might be sunny and raining. It might be sunny only. It might be raining only. It couldn't be not sunny and snowy, though. So I get more into that. I give them an example of and pretty quickly. I have a cat and a dog. Means that I have both a cat and a dog. But if I use or, and this is inclusive. So, and again, remember, this is an English lesson, so they're always learning new words. Really, I believe English is learned best through content. Just give content, interesting content. Some of this content might actually be new. They may have never learned this in Chinese even, but it's, again, their level's high enough that they're able to understand this content. They're learning new words without focusing all the time on the vocabulary words. These words they'll actually understand by just having exposure to them. Anyway, that's just a little explanation. But the word or is inclusive. I give some examples, but these examples actually aren't that good. I'm going to go through them quickly. If I ask, would you like tea or coffee? You may choose tea, you may choose coffee, you may choose both. There's actually more than that. I'm going to get to that. Or it may be exclusive in the sense, if I ask you, is your favorite color blue or red? I'm only giving you two choices. You have to either choose blue or red. But in context, if my favorite color was neither blue or red, then I might just say no, right? Is your favorite color blue or red? No, right? It's not. So it gets tricky, and then I ask them, can you think of a situation where it's essential to clarify or is being used inclusively or exclusively? Again, they usually know what essential is. Clarify was new. If they don't know it, I put it in here. I let them look at the Chinese. I have them explain it back to me to make sure it's translated correctly, and it gets them to produce English to explain something. So even if they do look at the Chinese definition, they have to explain the definition to me in English. But I'm really just looking for, okay, this actually was kind of difficult to get them to answer this question. So I rephrased the question and said, has there ever been a miscommunication because of the way or was used? Again, of course, most of their dialogue is in Chinese in their life. So I don't know everything about the Chinese language, but I imagine that there are going to be difficulties. The word or, some of them said yes, some of them said no, but upon further questions, I was able to usually get it. I gave them an example. I said, okay, and I say, especially if you don't hear my tone, if I'm text messaging things, then it's harder. So I give the example. If I were to ask you, do you want to go have dinner or go see a movie tonight? How many different ways can you answer that question? And there's a lot, right? If I ask that question, do you want to go out to the movies or have dinner tonight? You could say, I want to go out to the movies. I want to have dinner. I want to do both. You could just answer yes, right? I do, right? You could say no, I don't. There could also be an implication that I just want to do something, and you might offer another suggestion. Do you want to go out, especially, and this is with tone, do you want to go out to movies or have dinner? And then, oh yeah, let's go to the park, right? It makes sense. You could, in speaking, it makes sense to respond, even say yes. I could even say yes. I could say yes or no, and then add something on, right? Do you want to go to the movies or have dinner tonight? No, let's go to the park. Or yeah, let's go to the park, right? I mean, it really gets interesting in our spoken language, how those can both make sense, you know? It really got deep. And then when I started explaining this, there came up a lot of things about their language and how there's differences. And then I whack it with the words inclusive, exclusive, both and only one, containing all the elements, not excluding any, limited to the thing or group specified, not just one, but the two mentioned, one or the other, but not both, right? So one or the other, but not both is only one, not just one, but the two mentioned, both, limited to the thing or group specified, inclusive, wait, is that right? Limited to the thing or group specified, and containing all the elements, not excluding any. So that would be inclusive, and this one would be exclusive. Wow, that's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around sometimes. But then I have sentence structure, and I ask them to write a sentence, or in this case, they could just speak a sentence about your hobbies that are inclusive, adding and. That was easy. The inclusive and is pretty much always straightforward. Someone easily could probably come up with examples that and gets tricky. In fact, it does, but create a sentence using the inclusive or about weekend activities, right? That, I'm going, things they're going to do, and then have a decision they have to make, exclusive, with either or, right? This is more of the either or, this is more of the or both. Then I talk about validity and the validity of arguments. Again, I ask them, what does valid mean? I type in the word valid. They get the Chinese definition. I don't know that word is valid in the same way that it's used in English. So I ask them again. I ask them to describe it, explain it. And then sometimes they have difficulty explaining it. And then I ask them, does it mean that something is true? And they usually said yes. And then I said, okay, well, then either this translation is incorrect, or maybe you're looking at it in a different way. Because I think even in English, if I asked a native English speaker if something is valid, is it true? I think some people would say yes. Valid seems like it should be true, maybe. But I'll get into this question. Now, I don't know that all birds have wings, and that's an example. It doesn't matter, though, if it does or not. This argument is valid because if the premises are true. I talk about premises. Premises are the statements that a conclusion is based upon. So it doesn't matter. It's just if all birds have wings and penguins are birds, then it's true that penguins have wings. Regardless, this is true, but I'm going to get into this. So I talk about validity, then I ask them. I start out with the easy one. All humans are mammals. Sally is a human, therefore Sally is a mammal. That's valid and that's true because those statements, humans are mammals, Sally is a human, if I say so. Again, we don't know who Sally is, but if that's the case, Sally is a mammal. And then I ask them this one. This one is actually I usually get to another one because that one gets really tricky. I say, all birds can fly. Penguins are birds. Therefore, penguins can't fly. I love this one because they're, what? Wait, what? They say, no, that's false. I said, no, it's not. It's true. Penguins can't. Really? Penguins can fly? No, penguins can't fly. That's true. Talking about the conclusion. The conclusion is true. Penguins can't fly. And they say, well, but penguins, and they get hard. So I say this is invalid because actually all birds can fly. That's not true. Penguins are birds. That's true. Penguins can't fly. That's true. But it's not valid because if all birds could fly and penguins were birds, then penguins could fly. So, it would be false, but it would be valid. So I'm understanding this. Now, this question is really hard. Here, too. All mammals can fly. Bats are mammals. Therefore, bats can fly. Again, that's true, right? They conclude bats can fly. But not all mammals can fly. In this case is weird. Now, validity is different. Some people might say this is invalid. I actually, from my understanding, I would, again, discuss it. I would actually say this is valid. It's not sound, right? There's different terminology that we use, but it's not all the premises are true, but the conclusion is true, and the structure of the argument is valid. All mammals can fly. Bats are mammals. Therefore, bats can fly, right? But I just had to explain, okay, why? What's wrong with it, right? If it's valid, it has valid logic, and the conclusion is true. There's just a false premise in there, and I do get into that. And then I ask them this one: all flowers can sing. A rose is a flower, therefore a rose can sing. By now, they're starting to get it. They're able to say, okay, it's valid, but that's not true. That's false. And then so I help them out with this one. Then I give them these ones for them to find out. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time. Tell me, is it valid or invalid? And is it true or false? If I say, all fish can climb trees, salmon are fish, therefore salmon climb trees. So I think you probably identify right at the back, okay, I don't like that sentence. All fish can climb trees. That's not true. Salmon are fish, therefore salmon climb trees. The conclusion is false. Salmon don't climb trees. But the logic is actually valid, right? If fish could climb trees and salmon are fish, then salmon could climb trees. So it's a valid argument, but it's false. The conclusion is false. All things that shine at night are stars. Fireflies shine at night, therefore fireflies are stars. Obviously, fireflies are not stars, so I know it's false. But again, the argument is valid. The logic of it, if all things that shine at night are stars and fireflies shine at night, then fireflies would be stars. I like this one. I love these ones. They crack me up. They really take a while to wrap your head around. Sometimes some of them nail it like this though. All fruits have wings. Apples are fruits. Therefore, apples can be eaten. Right? This sounds so bizarre that some of them are invalid and false. It just sounds ridiculous. But actually, it's not false, right? Apples can be eaten. So it's true, but the logic is 100% invalid. It's not related, right? Fruits have wings. That's false, and it has nothing to do with can be eaten. apples and fruits, I could say all fruits can be eaten. Apples are fruits, therefore apples can be eaten. I'm changing them from here. The next one is all dogs are animals. Beagles are a type of dog, therefore beagles are animals. Now I had to go. Some of them didn't know what a beagle was, and then you wouldn't know if it was true or not. Showed them that a beagle was a dog. Also loved it. We talked about food, then I talked about bagels. What is a bagel? Some of them thought a bagel was a donut, and I said, no, a bagel is not a donut. It looks like a donut, but it's not sweet like a donut. It's not deep fried like a donut, so it's much healthier than a donut. It's a very interesting process because you take the dough and you actually drop it in boiling water for a certain time, and then you bake it so it gets this. It's chewy. It's a different texture. Cut it in half. Makes a great sandwich. Go back to the beginning of the lesson and talk about. Go ahead, put peanut butter and jelly on it. Put avocado on it. If on your add avocado to any sandwich, not the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but any vegetable sandwich or meat sandwich. I'll say it. I like to not talk about meat, but anyway. So then I have logical puzzles. I'm gonna pass over these actually because I didn't get to them, but I did get to some of them. I'll ask you this question. I should have had a picture with 2 doors and 2 guards. I didn't. I was lazy. This question is a really good one. There are 2 doors, and one leads to certain death. It doesn't matter. It can be fire and dragons and spikes and assassins and a cliff or whatever. You're dead. You open that door and go through that door, you die. The other one is freedom and gold and chocolate and whatever you enjoy. And there's a guard in front of each door. And you don't know who is who, but one of them always tells the truth and one of them always lies. Now, sometimes people automatically assume the first question, and I say you can ask them one question. Ask them one question and then choose a door to go in. Right? I mean, pretty significant. You have to choose the right answer or you die. The other one leads to wonderful bliss and freedom. So you only get one question. Usually they'll ask it, okay, is this the right door or something? And I'm like, whoa, all you can do is establish if that person was telling the truth or not by opening the door. But once you open the door, you have to go in. I mean, you don't know which door. You don't know if you've asked the truth. Sometimes they assume that the truth teller is standing in front of the door that's good but no, you don't know. You don't know which one's telling the truth. You don't know which one's lying. You don't know which door is the door that's freedom or which door is the door that is certain death. But there is one question, or probably more variations of it. There's one question that you can ask to either person. You don't know which person that is, but you can ask them that question and it will allow you to know which door to go. Do you know the answer? So you ask the question, you say, if I were to ask the other guard, which door would he tell me to go in if I wanted to be free and not die? It takes a while to wrap your head around and think about that. If I were to ask the truth teller, tell me which door would the other guard tell me to go in if I wanted to go into the freedom door, he would tell me the truth, which would be what the liar would say, which would be the wrong door. The liar would tell me to go in the certain death. So you should go the opposite. That's the trick, is in either case, you do the opposite of what the person tells you to do. If you ask the truth teller, he would tell you to go into the wrong door because he'd be telling you the truth, and the liar would tell you to go into the wrong door. And if you ask the liar, what would the other guy tell me? The other guy would tell me the truth. He'd tell me which door to go to freedom, but he's the liar, so he's not going to tell me that. He'd tell me to go in this door. So in either case, if you were to ask that question to either person, you would always go in the opposite door of that. Logic question there. Here's another one. I say, if a card shows, here's the rule. The rule is, if a card shows an even number on one face or one side, then its opposite face is red. That's the rule. Make sure some of them didn't know even number. I mean, it's funny. My students are very advanced, but sometimes Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? Those are even numbers. Now, which cards must I turn over to test this rule? Now, I will tell you a couple things. Every card is gray and it has a number or a letter on one side, and the other side is a color. Red or green, it could be another color probably, it doesn't matter. Now I say, which cards must you flip over to determine if this rule is true or not? A lot of people said the red one. It's not, right? It doesn't matter, actually. There's no reason to flip over the red one, because all that matters is if a card shows an even number on one face, then the opposite face is red. It's not saying that if it's red, it has to be even on the other side. It wouldn't matter. I could flip this over. It could be a B, a picture of a clown, 6, 7. It doesn't matter what number that was. If it were even, it would be true. If it wasn't even, it wouldn't make this statement untrue. So you don't need to look at that. You don't need to look over at the A, because it could be red or green or blue or purple. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change this rule, but you would have to change over the 2. 2 is an even number. You have to make sure that the other side is red. And you would also, that one's easy, but some people didn't realize you have to flip over the green card. You have to make sure that it's not an even number on the other side, because if it's an even number on the other side, then this would be false, because the even number has to have a red on that side. I didn't get to this one that I passed, so I'm going to do that next week. I didn't get to this one either, so I'm going to get to that next week. Then I had these questions. I had them finish off these syllogisms. These are syllogism puzzles, and one of them actually I caught. Again, I'm having a conversation with ChatGPT to create this lesson, and I'm going back and forth. I found one that wasn't right, but I actually like it. I tried to see if my students would catch it. One of them did, and I ask them, all apples are fruits. All fruits are delicious. Therefore, all apples are delicious. Good. You can go with me. Finish off these sentences. All cats are animals. No animals are plants. Therefore, no cats are plants. Right? And those are easy. Then I'm going to get a little more difficult. Medium. All roses are flowers. No flowers are trees. Therefore, no roses are trees. Right? All pencils are tools. All tools are not. All pencils are tools. Some tools are not electronic. Therefore, some pencils are. This one's actually not. This one you would have to say. This one's actually extra tricky, because all pencils are tools. Some tools are not electronic. Therefore, some pencils are possibly not electronic, but not necessarily. It's possible that all pencils could be electronic, because some tools are not electronic, but there are some tools that aren't pencils that might be not electronic, and it's possible that all pencils are electronic. I believe, and I talked to ChatGPT about this, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, I made a mistake." So, because they actually told me the answer was not electronic, but that's not true. I used this one. I kept it there though, and most of them would say not electronic off the bat. Some of them caught it. Something's wrong. That was a good one. Then I got to this one. All dancers are fit. Some athletes are not fit. Therefore, some athletes are not. Now, some of them said not fit, which is true, but that we just said that. Some athletes are not fit, so therefore some athletes are not fit. The answer is dancers, right? If all dancers are fit and some athletes are not fit, then that means that some athletes have to not be dancers, because if they were dancers, they would be fit. Again, we don't care about the truth value. We care about the validity of these arguments in this case. Some mammals can fly. All things that can fly have wings. No fishes have wings. Therefore, no fishes are mammals. That one's easy, actually, because it just makes sense. But then I break it down into a different point. I did talk about an English part. Usually, we don't need to say fish. We don't pluralize fish if it's the same kind of fish. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, whatever, right? We just say one fish, two fish, three fish, if they're all the same, goldfish. But if I'm talking about fishes, I would use fishes, different fishes, right? Different fishes means different kinds of fishes. it is proper to use it in that case. You might have some leeway. You may have the opportunity to do either one. And then I actually did this one with letters because I talk about how in the philosophy of logic, we do turn our sentences into kind of like mathematical formulas. And I asked this question: all D's are J's, no J's are C's, all E's are not C's, therefore all D's are, and you could actually say C's, or I mean you could say not C's or E's. You can say all D's are E's or all D's are not C's. Right now some of my students are able to get this right away. Some of them aren't, and then I help them out and I say, okay, well let's. What if I were to say all diamonds are jewels, and I were to say no jewels are cheap, and then I said all expensive things are not cheap. And it's funny how, so we have these arguments. Once you put in a place that is a familiar word and concept, it's very easy now. All diamonds are jewels. No jewels are cheap. All expensive things are not cheap. Therefore, all diamonds are not cheap, or therefore all diamonds are expensive, right? These are easy when we look at them, when we have all the words, when we break it down to letters. Sometimes it's more difficult. And then I talk about how actually a lot of arguments, they are really long. Some of them are just a lot of flowery words when people write arguments. Again, this is leading into essay writing, discursive essay writing, argumentative essays, and what we or what I'm focusing on here is recognizing to notice that there are arguments sometimes that are there could be some problem in their logic, in their statements, could be false. Maybe they drew the correct conclusion, but you can still find error in it. It's developing an area of the brain that again, I mean, I didn't take philosophy of logic classes until university. My students are high school students. They're able to understand these concepts, but they actually haven't necessarily learned these. Most of them haven't learned this in Chinese yet. So it's really interesting to kind of, and this is more Western logic, actually. I mean, there are different branches of philosophy that I would say philosophy of logic is more of a prominent in Western philosophy. So again, they are learning culture and different views, and most of them want to learn how. I got to say this, there is a lot of especially now politically talking about China as an adversary and everything, and I just want to say, I mean, okay, fair enough, politically, economically, hopefully not militarily. That's just going to be absolutely heart-wrenching. It's just sick to see to it come down to that. But one thing China is doing, they do care. I'm not saying they care because they just love Western culture and want to embrace it, but they have a big push on understanding, essay writing. I mean, they are training and I think it's good on their part that they're looking at. They look at Western culture. They do study Western culture and logic and essay writing, how we write essays, how we do things. And I mean, I think it would be used. It's going to be used against the West if Western perspectives don't open up more to looking at things from a Chinese perspective. I think it's important. I think it's important for everybody. And what I find though is most of my students, they like me. They like Western culture. They do still see some of the news, and they do get propaganda, just like propagandas in every state that might think, okay, there's these are bad and this is good and stuff. But the most important thing is just opening up to other cultures, and China really is their education system. They are opening up to Western ideas in a way that, again, I don't think it's necessarily from a place of just love, but it is a place from openness and it's important. And I see a lot of closed views coming from the West, and it is difficult. I just want to throw that out there, not to get overly political or anything like that here. But it's I love my students so much. I think they're amazing, and and they're lovely. They're just lovely students, and it's fun to see their interest. It's to see that they're interested in Western culture. I think more than most Westerners are in Chinese culture, except for, funny enough, things like Taoism and Chinese medicine. I would say there's much more. I think Westerners are more open to some Chinese and Eastern philosophies than the Chinese people know themselves. So this is an area to share. Like, share with me, and they do. They'll share with me some philosophers. I was never big on the political philosophers, so they get into I mean, Marxism. Of course, Marxism is something they do study. Karl Marx and Engels and everything. But actually, they learn about the philosophers that were anti-communist. I think it's really good. They have these critical classes, and there are different students, the ones who are more advanced. I don't think everyone gets the same stuff, but the way their education is set up is like they are the ones who are intelligent and open to different ideas. That Western ideas are promoted in positive light. I would say, we don't know all the time what's going on in China, because there are these blockades from the way information is set up. The WeChat or Google platform, Bing or whatever different people are using, but they have VPNs and they can get access to other things, and ultimately, like, cut the politics out, man. The people are great. People love each other in general. I've never met a group of people really that aren't kind and caring and have so much in common and so much to share and interest. That's what I really feel from my students. They have a genuine interest in all these other ideas. Of course, they're younger and they're more sponge-like, and as we get older we lose that. But I definitely hope everybody just kind of embraces other ideas and can experience what I experience here. I get so close to some of my students, and I wouldn't have been able to really if I didn't, right? Because the Chinese people most people talk to are the ones who move abroad, and they usually have either they're a spy or they have these aren't the only two options talking about right? But they could be a spy, they could be like a defector type. They might not like. There are a lot of negative aspects to you think about the control and everything that we hear about, and we see these things, and some people want to break free. They don't feel free. They're not able to voice their opinions. There definitely is a crackdown on freedom of speech, but we're seeing that in the West too. So from a different aspect, in China at least, they kind of know it's state-run media. Western media is like pretty much state-run media, but it's in the guise of free speech or something. So a lot of Chinese, when we talk to people from other countries that aren't living in that country and aren't staying in that country, they might have a negative perspective. So we kind of get, and they'll say the bad things about it, but I think it's a beautiful country. I think there's a lot of amazing things. Again, I hated how the COVID crackdown, I think was difficult. I can't get too much into that because this is posted on Facebook and YouTube. But ultimately, like I said, I want to see, I hope, who's listening to these videos? They're probably people who are learning English, maybe advanced learners. Some of them, I'd expect some Chinese people to maybe find this. I hope you're getting this and realizing that we do need this bridge between cultures. Obviously, right now with Russia, definitely something important to have. The people aren't mad at each other, right? Governments are able to turn. Once you join the military and go in war, then it's easy to get into. I'm getting too deep there, but I mean, it's just then you just you ruin a generation basically. Generations are ruined every time there's a war. That there's hatred going to be brewed, and it's going to last at least a generation. But the people who do that are just there definitely are different ways. Way too deep here. That's my English lesson for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.